Well, a couple days before, I had a couple different dreams that I died, and I was so amazed by it. I thought, "Oh wow, why did I have that dream?" And so I began to pray and say, "God, what's going on? I don't know why I'm having these dreams about dying and going to heaven." And I felt very serious, like I really needed to pray and intercede, but I couldn't figure out how I could die. I was like, I feel like I'm healthy and I don't know what could happen out here. But I just remember just that day before just talking to the Lord over and over and over. And I said, Lord, I want to go to heaven someday, of course. I want to be with you. And I don't want you to think that I don't want to go to heaven. But if it's okay with you, I would like to stay here longer. And so I was just praying and just crying out to God. And so when the guy came in to our room in the early morning hours, I thought, oh no, this is what the Lord was warning me about. And I thought, it's very possible I'm going to die. But the Lord, we've already talked about it all day yesterday. We talked about it, and I'm willing to go if that's what you want. But I think my kids might have a hard time understanding if something happens like this. I think they're going to feel really bad. So I just remember, just in the midst of all this stuff going on, I just remember thinking, Lord, I'm surrendered to you, but if it's okay with you, Lord, I'll stay here on earth a little bit longer before we go to heaven. So it was kind of an interesting experience for me.
Yeah, it was about 4 o'clock or 4:30 early in the morning. We were asleep there in a new construction building at our mission base on the island, and we heard an explosion of a gun, and it woke us up, and we were trying to figure out what was going on. Then we heard another explosion, and pretty soon the door where we had a barricade, the door was knocked over, and a gunman entered, had a mask on with a loaded gun, and he was threatening to kill us. So that was obviously quite a rude awakening. And the scenario was that there was no electricity on the island at that time, so it was just pitch black dark. But he had a light headlamp on, so there was some light from his headlamps. We could see his gun, and we could see that he had already shot one of our fellow teammates. He went into a nearby building, demanded for one of our pastors, to come down from the loft where he was sleeping, shot him in the foot and said, "Take me to the Americans." So what could the pastor do? Just come at gunpoint there. And here we found ourselves in the middle of the early morning dark hours, looking down the loaded gun with a guy saying he's going to kill us if we didn't give money. What did that feel like to you?
Well, shocking for sure. But I just remember thinking that I don't want to be kidnapped, and I don't know what to do. It's one of those moments when you just really don't know how to handle a situation. You don't know how to fix it. And we just needed God. So we just began to pray, just prayed as loud as we could. We just prayed loud and just cried out to God to help us because we really needed Him.
The gunman got a little confused, and rather than shoot us, he went over to the suitcases nearby, and he started rummaging through them to try to find something, and tried to still keep us at gunpoint. There was another pastor nearby who had already been shot by this gunman, that when he got a reprieve from gunpoint, he grabbed a chair nearby and he broke it over his head and started wrestling him for the gun. And as he pulled him away, the gun kept going off several more times. As it went off, the pastor said that the gunman pointed back towards us and shot. One of those shots went through my arm, and so I yelled, "I'm shot! I got hit!" Glenn goes, Where?
It's a terrible feeling to have your husband hit, shot. And, of course, it's totally dark, so we didn't know, you know. And so he says, in my arm. So I was so thankful it wasn't in his, heart or his lung or something. But we just, grabbed a pillowcase off the pillow and just put tied his arm while the guy is still shooting towards us, to stop the bleeding. And of course, you can't see how bad it is. You don't know anything, but I'm thankful. It was miraculous that his gunshot it didn't break a bone, and it didn't, uh, you know, he didn't bleed to death before we could get to a hospital. So we were just so thankful for that.
We had several guests with us that were in another room. It was a secure room, was locked. Where we were sleeping was unsecure because it was a new construction portion of the building. So an older lady came out of the room. She heard us praying and she thought we were having a prayer meeting. And so she wanted to come and pray with us. So she came, and the gunman was so surprised. And I said, "Get back in the room."
Yeah, we're so thankful that she was very cooperative, because I think she would have gotten shot. She was right in the line of fire.
Even though I was shot in the arm, the bullet went through my arm, yet there was no bone fracture. Finally got to the ER, which was about 16 hours or so away because they didn't have a ER or a hospital on that island. When we finally got there, the doctors were just commenting. They were amazed because they considered it a miracle. Of course, we know God is a miracle working God. And by the next weekend, I was already up in church playing the guitar and singing, "Let the redeemed of the Lord say so." He was redeemed from the hand of the enemy.
Around that time, the Lord just put a real heavy burden of prayer upon our daughter and some of her friends. And so they prayed for us. And, if God puts somebody on your heart, it's really important to pray for them and to intercede, because you don't know what they might be facing. And God was faithful and answered their prayers. And we believe that it very possibly could have been a different ending to the story, but we just thank God for his mercy and giving us a few more years to serve him and to, proclaim the gospel. So we're thankful for that.
It's interesting, before this happened, I was impressed with a verse from Psalm 107, verse 2. "Let the redeemed of the Lord," or the rescued of the Lord, "say so, whom he's redeemed or rescued from the hand of the enemy." And I was laying there that morning, even before this happened, and I was kind of fading in and out of sleep, and I was thinking about that verse, and I thought, well, that's a great verse. That's a real special Rhema word from God for today. We'll talk about that at a devotional time. And so when we were able to gather with our group after the gunman finally went running away, after our pastor had wrestled the gun away from him and we were safe, we gathered in a room nearby and we were just praising God. Even though there were injuries, we were thankful to be alive, and we considered that word from the Lord, "Let the rescued of the Lord say so. He's redeemed from the hand of the enemy." And we're so thankful that the Lord did rescue us. He did answer prayer, and we are still alive and still able to go out to the islands and keep sharing the gospel.